work, and the person's like, I go to work because I gotta maintain my life, pay for my kids, you know, food and just like everything. And so like the person is suddenly realizes, like the interviewer suddenly realizes, okay, this father of this kind of happy middle class family is living for his children, he's living for his family. Okay. But when you look at the children of that person, you will see it's as if you're living for the future generations. Let's say right now, I don't care how much you've done good on this planet, how much you've done bad, whoever you are. If you just have, I say, at least a minimum of like minimum 1%, I would say 10 is like normal, but let's say minimum 1% care for the future generations, your actions will not be the same. Sometimes hope is found when the depth of the world increased. It's like that moment where in Lord of the Rings they're like, holy shit, there's too many enemies and we're like locked in here, and suddenly the Aragorn remembers like a wizard is never late or early, and Gandalf arrives with his entourage, like and so it's one of those things where it's as if hope is the added dimension of the potential that can be. And they should have taught this to kids. The first thing they should teach the kid, you know what it is? I think the Japanese educational system has it right. It is teaching the child how to navigate their attention, teaching them of how their attention is, how they are being to themselves. There's many lost opportunities when there's many blindfolds. There's a quote I want to read for you. This poem, actually. It's from a man who was alive 1,000 years ago, and he was a Sufi dervish in Persian culture, and he was a mystic. Of course, he was the Sufi dervish tradition is incredibly mystical. Strangely, I don't understand why the live stream is saying only 4 minutes of this has been recorded. For me, it's a restructuring of values on an individual dimension, eventually arising towards a collective field, Pretty much we're going to be like drops of water that become a stream, and then the stream becomes a river. Then the river passes through the waterfall, in some sense navigates its plane of existence, and then in some sense it returns to, how would I say it, like you're kind of pulled by yourself into the moment. Farid al-Din Attar from Nishapur says the home we seek is in eternity. The truth we seek is like a shoreless sea, of which your paradise is but a drop. This ocean can be yours. Why should you stop, beguiled by dreams of evanescent dew? The secrets of the sun are yours, but you content yourself with motes trapped in beams, trapped in its beams. Turn to what truly lives, reject what seems. Which matters more, the body or the soul? He asks, which matters more, the body or the soul? And then he gives the answer. He says, be whole, W-H-O-L-E, be whole, desire and journey to the whole. You have to seek the sort of completion of your intelligence. Many things done in history, many decisions made, at the time they seemed good, suddenly, like 100 years later, they seemed bad, you know? And also vice versa. Something was done that was seen as bad and wrong, and then 100 years it became the norm. We are an evolutionary race. We started off from learning from our chaos. However, the era of chaos is coming to an end because the era of innovation and advanced communication is beginning. This is the phase of our evolutionary cycle as a species where our minds stand anew in the structures that they have made. Suddenly, the story of our civilization becomes as it seems to be. It's like just like the writer tries to fill up the empty page. The director tries to fill up the empty frame. The human being tries to fill up the world and its meaning. It doesn't matter whether man created God or God created man. the moment is present, and there's a known aspect to it and an unknown aspect. And as long as there's an unknown aspect, rationality doesn't have is on thin ice. And not just rationality, just reality. Either it's like the yin yang symbol being applied, and some part of the moment which is real has an imaginary component to it. Some part of, okay, so in front of your eyes, it's like there's the world, and then there's this notion of like, see, the yin yang symbol, to be honest, it's in two-dimensionally, it cannot be acknowledged properly. It's three-dimensional. The yin yang symbol is a symmetrical opposite. That means it's as if you are in alignment with nature, yet what is being the nature of the moment is changing. There's a Zen story where, in the Zen story, there's this guy pretty much sitting on, like, this very nice field, and like in the afternoon, this monk, and he sits there, and suddenly he notices some truth about the world, some real truth from his experience. He realizes the nature of the world in some sense. Like, he doesn't understand it fully, but he sees the world in a new way. Suddenly he sees something deeper about the world. The deeper levels of data of the world arise in the consciousness of the being. So pretty much this dude's chilling, in his meditative kind of atmosphere, and he suddenly sees beyond fear and beyond the atom sphere. And in some sense, he sees beyond the nature of the common reality. And as the Zen story goes on, this is something I read online, it's a Zen story. There was a dark minion, like in some other dimension, who sees this and runs to the Dark Lord and says, Dark Lord, this guy just realized something about the truth of the world. He just realized our truth, you know? And so the Dark Lord looks at the minion and he's like, don't worry about it. And the minion's like, what do you mean? And it's like, don't worry about it, because he's going to make a belief out of it. That means the moment you make something into a belief, it's like you have cut the flower. You have tried to, with an indirect subconscious desire, take beauty, take truth. You cannot take truth. The wise do not take truth. Truth comes to them. You don't chase the butterfly. You sit among the lotus and it comes to you. That is the way the nature of the world works. Now, the nature of karma, it has to do with reception and expression. As if you express things in a certain state, in a certain moment, and you suddenly receive it. It was the concept of karma, even like it came to me at such a depth where I'm like, how is karma even possible? Because the self that made the action, is not the same self. It's as if like who you were 10 years ago is not who you are now. So why should something that you did 10 years ago influence what you are now? It's as if you're not the same you to even have the same past. This is something phenomenal. You can have a group of people in an elevator in a tall building, in a big building, skyrise. And as the elevator goes down, some of them are going to feel it was really long. Some of them are going to feel it wasn't long at all. Some of them are going to feel like, they didn't even pay attention to whether it was long or not, right? And so you see the various ways the world's output, it becomes man's input in some sense. Like how we receive, like the world is being contained uh, by a world that is gravitating around a central notion of who you think you are. So you are actually being thought, but you're not just thought. It's so important to understand this. Thought is just the current technology we have. if we wanted to really be like, imagine the scientists saying, I need to do experiments. We're like, yo, listen, you don't even need to do the experiment. Just watch. Just watch your moment of being. Just watch your moment of being and watch how it happens and learn. Like, it's nature's voice. When nature moves, man must be silent because he will not hear. He will not hear the incredible genius that in some sense uh, pulses through this universal sector. We are creatures where externally we are, the life goes towards the particular. We are particles. Internally, you are a field of intelligence. You will know this. You will suddenly realize it. You will realize what is keeping all your memories is a moment of attention, and then comes a supreme view. I've kind of written about it, or considered it in such a way where it's as if, like I say, it's as if one eye, there's tears of joy coming, and from the other eye is like the tears of sorrow. There's tears of the ultimate clarity. You have seen it, but then there's the tears of the many worlds that do not have access to that ultimate clarity. It's as if when there's a nice technology that helps people's lives, we share that as a species. I feel something will happen that is going to change politics in such a unique way that global politics, like how the globe is acknowledging itself as various nations, it's going to change soon. It's going to change because we're going to fear the loop. We're going to fear this sort of game we're playing with ourselves as these separate categories of the world, not recognizing the value of a unified humanity, a united humanity. You know what that means? That means the greatness of every individual is accessible to all. Where, like, okay, instead of win-lose mentality like our ancestors who were stuck in war, let's just be like, okay, win-win. Let's allow everybody to win, but let's not get rid of the challenges of life that in some sense also stretch our mind beyond its belief. Somebody, I heard it from Terence McKenna. I feel he heard it probably from somebody else too, but somebody said it like, we're sophisticated apes making, we are advanced apes making sophisticated mouth noises. You don't understand. I was like in the subway coming home, and for a second I got shocked. I got shocked because I'm like, whoa, we are like this evolved creature which suddenly stood on its 2 feet. Like, think of nature right now, guys. Just think about this. I want you to think about how all the animals evolved and how we evolved. And there's many approaches to this. This is one of those ideas that could have endless input, but in some sense, as the hourglass reminds you of the urgency to find the true value of life, you will see there is not enough time to even search for truth. You have to be it. You have to realize the moment is being in a true way. Light is being the moment. For me, it's kind of like when you eat food, you add spices to it to add taste and flavor and texture. So similarly, it's as if, like, in order to add a new taste, you have to add a new spice. In order to create a new kind of humanity, we have to add a new dimension. And that's the only way. That's the only way. We cannot expect the past to figure it out because the past decided too early on fixed views. They chose the world's axis too soon. So, guys, I'm kind of concerned about this talk because I feel the beginning might have not been recorded. And so this might be more than a 20-minute talk so far. And hopefully it's been recorded well. But pretty much, if it is possible to study the shapeless nature of thought, that means there's a shapeless intelligence to acknowledge that. There's something in this moment right now that is neither your body, it is neither the objective component of your moment, and it is neither the subjective component. It has nothing to do with how you think about things, and it has nothing to do with how matter moves. It's just the witness. I call it the inner space. The inner space is strangely empty, yet not empty with intelligence. Kind of like how in ancient Vedanta they said the observer of the sensory perception has nothing to do with the sensory perception. Your inner reality is intersecting with the dimension of imagination, which means reality is potential. The light of a dying star gives our world life. The star is sacrificing itself poetically so that our eyes have something to be. I find that language is inner technology. Technology is not just external. External technologies, I don't know, like it's 2050, there's going to be a singularity. I recommend listening to various futurists and Ray Kurzweil and Neil Bostrom. Sam Harris has also spoken about AI too. But the inner technologies has to do with how attention composes structure, but a subtle structure, and this subtle structure becomes the story of the person. The story of the person is a character which has to move to be alive. You have to move to be alive. Okay? When I say you have to move to be alive, that means your attention has to acknowledge change. If it is acknowledging change, that means that change is occurring. So in some sense, the world changes and our eyes remain open. And we will eventually reach a point where the body becomes the temple where you have prayed your whole life, and you will leave this temple. You will recognize that evolution is the response of the journey of eons into now. It is liberation. That's those beings who seek liberation. They will be inspired by their inner story. Sometimes you should not uh, think too little of your suffering. Suffering is not bad. Suffering is nature. The gazelle runs from the lion. Man runs from time. The body stands its ground. The being has the potential to be alive in many ways. It must choose